It doesn't begin with cash. It begins with a clip. Sometime after midnight, you're drifting through videos about making money online. The usual noise. E-commerce gurus, trading bros, link farming. Nothing sticks. Then a different voice cuts through. Online casinos don't require players to go broke. They're engineered to prevail. You don't grasp the mechanics, but the sentence lodges somewhere. The next afternoon, you dig. How does a virtual casino actually function? You end up in obscure forums, stale threads, strangers debating percentages and house advantages. Some of it reads like algebra. The rest sounds absurdly straightforward. The platform doesn't need to rig anything. It simply needs to endure. That notion settles in your chest. Hours later, you stumble across a marketplace. Turnkey casino software. Preloaded games. Admin dashboard. Merchant gateway. $420. You examine the listing for a long time. It doesn't appear shady. It doesn't even appear sophisticated. Just a piece of software. You glance at your bank app. The funds are there. Not comfortably, but available. You close the browser. Reopen it. Reread the specifications, the testimonials, the live preview. Everything seems operational. That's the detail that persuades you. No glamour, no promises. Just functionality. Before bed, you purchase it. No ceremony. An email lands. Transaction successful. A download link waits. You configure it deliberately, piece by piece. Hosting environment, domain registration, basic theming. It takes longer than the tutorial suggested. More troubleshooting, more minor friction. But by 3:10 a.m., it's breathing. You navigate to your own URL. A polished interface, rudimentary games, a cashier button, a ledger panel. Nothing spectacular. But actual. You remain motionless, examining it because the thing is no longer hypothetical. It's accessible. Reachable by anyone. You test the flow. Fabricate an account. Inject a modest deposit. Spin a few rounds. The balance flickers up, then evaporates. The arithmetic behaves. No glitches. No lag. You recline. The apartment is silent. The monitor radiates pale light. And for the first time, your mind isn't calculating potential revenue. It's occupied with a simpler curiosity. How many strangers would genuinely engage with this? You leave the tab pinned. Staring at the deposit portal. Because the inquiry has shifted from, does it operate, to, what occurs when a real person taps that button? The website remains dormant initially. You refresh periodically. Nothing stirs. No registrations. No motion. Just a dormant interface. You don't anticipate much. It's fresh. Zero visibility. Zero reason for discovery. Still, you revisit it later that evening. Same emptiness. The following day, you decide to perform a minimal action. You establish a burner profile on a discussion board. Draft a neutral post. No hype. Just a hyperlink. New platform. Trial period. You don't expect engagement. You shut the laptop and proceed with your day. Hours pass. Your device vibrates. You ignore it momentarily. Then you glimpse the preview. New member enrolled. You spring to the dashboard. One entry. Zero funds. Just a handle. You fixate on it. The emptiness is gone. A stranger clicked. A stranger joined. You refresh. The data persists. Real. A few minutes elapse. Another alert. Deposit confirmed. $27. Trivial, yet the significance eclipses the sum. You access the user overview. Observe the balance materialize. 27. Then you monitor the gameplay logs. The participant wagers. Micro stakes. Spins. Clicks. Minor surges. Gradual erosion. You don't meddle. You simply spectate. Because this is no longer a simulation. This is a live participant. You edge forward, tracking each decision. The balance oscillates, then dwindles, then vanishes. The session concludes without fanfare. No grievance. No follow-up. The user disconnects. You linger on the dashboard. Then you shift your gaze to your wallet. The funds are still there. Modest. But tangible. You didn't promote. You didn't persuade. You merely assembled the mechanism. And it functioned. That's the instant comprehension crystallizes. Not exhilaration. Not adrenaline. A hushed acknowledgement. This event can duplicate. That dusk, you place the link elsewhere. Another niche community. Unobtrusive. Just presence. Later, you check again. 3 accounts. Then 5. One deposits 15. Another 40. A third injects 120. You witness it all. Every wager. Every minor victory. Every defeat. The identical sequence repeating. No manipulation. No interference. Just the apparatus executing its design. By night's end, you review the aggregate. A few hundred. Not transformative. But sufficient. Sufficient to feel altered. You settle back. Gazing at the figures. Because the question is no longer, will anyone engage? That uncertainty is resolved. Now it's weightier. How many will persist if this rhythm continues? The metrics don't explode. They swell. Gradual. Uniform. Predictable. That's the first observation. Each day introduces fresh accounts, fresh deposits, fresh sessions. Nothing theatrical. But the accumulation compounds. You cease hourly checks. Now it's every few minutes. Not because of anxiety. Because of efficacy. One afternoon, you navigate deeper into the admin interface. Not to track users. To comprehend the architecture. There are sections you've overlooked. Configuration panels. Game parameters. Analytics. You browse cautiously. Much of it appears arcane. Figures. Ratios. Charts. Then you locate it. Return to player. 96%. You hesitate. You've encountered that figure previously. In the comment sections. In the explanatory videos. You select it. More details unfurl. Descriptions. Averaged yield over duration. Inherent advantage. You study it meticulously. Then reread it. Because clarity arrives. Not instantaneous. But distinct. If the return is 96%, the player base collectively surrenders 4% across time. Not uniformly. Not each encounter. But inevitably. The platform doesn't require constant victories. It merely requires sustained engagement. You gradually recline. Staring at the display. Because this reframes your entire perspective. The surges. The slumps. The rhythms you've been tracking. It's not arbitrary. It's architecture. You access the session records. Re-examine the activity. Now you perceive it differently. Modest early rewards. Later attrition. Balances ascending, then contracting. Not coerced. Steered. That's the realization. You're not overseeing a game. You're overseeing a structure calibrated to outlast the participant. Your cursor drifts back to the RTP parameter. Hovers. It's adjustable. Not severely. Just incremental modification. 95. 94. 92. You don't select anything. Not immediately. Because you've grasped a crucial truth. It's already lucrative. You've altered nothing. And revenue continues flowing. You recheck your cumulative total. It exceeds yesterday's figure. Again. Zero exertion. Zero interference. Just duration. That's the distinguishing factor. It's not contingent on your presence. It operates regardless of your attention. You exit the Configuration tab. Return to the primary display. Observe the live traffic. A new participant registers. Funds 60. Commences wagering. Secures a minor gain. Then persists. You don't trail each action as before. You already anticipate the trajectory. Not the specifics. But the ultimate direction. That's the component that lingers. Not the individual outcomes. The certainty. Later that night, you revisit the configuration panel. This time, you don't merely observe. Your pointer settles on the RTP value. You hesitate. Because the question is no longer, does this function? That inquiry is settled. Now it's, how much influence do you genuinely possess? You don't adjust it instantly. Even though the capability exists. Even though the toggle is visible. You retain 96%. Temporarily. Because it's already performing. The revenue continues arriving. Slowly. Consistently. Each day mirrors the last. New participants. New deposits. Familiar sequences. You assure yourself. No adjustment necessary. Yet the notion persists. You revisit it constantly. Each time you access the panel. Each time you glimpse that figure. 96%. It begins to feel mutable. Not fixed. Not permanent. Just a variable. One evening, you settle in and launch the dashboard. Balance higher than the prior day. Again. You scroll through the traffic. More participants now. More sessions. More duration. The apparatus is expanding. That's what alters your calculus. Not the funds. The magnitude. Because now you're not inquiring, does it operate? You're inquiring, what transpires if I tweak it fractionally? You navigate to the parameters. Proceed directly to RTP. Your cursor rests on the numeral. You don't overanalyze. You simply reduce it. 96 to 94. 2%. Barely perceptible. You confirm. Nothing occurs. No alert. No caution. Just a parameter. Revised. You return to the main display. Monitor the activity. Participants still enrolling. Still engaging. Still securing small sums. Still relinquishing them. No reaction. No behavioral shift. You lean forward incrementally. Observing more intently. Because this is distinct. This isn't the mechanism. This is you. A few hours elapse. You recheck your balance. Higher than anticipated. Not dramatically. But discernibly. You examine the logs. Compare sessions against prior data. Something has tightened. Victories don't sustain as long. Balances diminish marginally quicker. Nothing conspicuous. Nothing visible to the participant. But to you, it's evident. You recline gradually. Because you've absorbed a fresh insight. The apparatus was already calibrated to triumph. But now you can dictate the tempo of that triumph. The following day, you abstain from interference. You merely observe. Permit it to operate. Watch. The pattern endures. No grievances. No inquiries. No one challenging anything. That's the persuasive factor. Not the revenue. The hush. Later that night, you revisit the configuration. This time there's no pause. 94 to 92. You confirm. Close the panel. Return to the dashboard. Because now it no longer resembles a gamble. It resembles refinement. You recheck your aggregate. Then again an hour afterward. Then once more before sleeping. Each instance marginally elevated. Quicker than previously. You settle back into your chair. Examining the display. Because this marks the pivot point. Not when you assembled it. Not when the first participant joined. But now. When you recognize it doesn't merely operate independently anymore. It operates according to your preference. The figures begin shifting more rapidly. Not explosively, but sufficiently that you detect it without constant monitoring. Previously, you refreshed obsessively. Now it's unnecessary. Each time you return, the value is amplified. That's the distinction. You launched the dashboard in the morning. Balance augmented overnight. Again. Additional participants. Additional deposits. The activity stream flows continuously now. Fresh usernames. Fresh sessions. It no longer feels like a modest venture. It feels alive. You scroll through recent deposits. 40. 75. 120. 300. Nothing extreme. But steady. That's what renders it hazardous. Because it doesn't resemble a surge. It resembles a current. You access your wallet. Compare it against the previous week. Then the week prior. The disparity exceeds expectations. Not merely expanding. Accelerating. You don't react outwardly. You simply remain still momentarily. Because now it's not just functioning. It's compounding. That evening, you make a subtle choice. Not regarding the system. Regarding yourself. You enhance your environment. Nothing ostentatious. Just improved. A tidier workspace. A quicker machine. A supplementary monitor to eliminate tab switching. You rationalize it as practicality. It assists with oversight. But internally, you're aware of the source. The subsequent days adhere to the same rhythm. Launch. Dashboard. Review totals. Monitor activity. Close. Repeat. You no longer track individual participants. You track the aggregate. Total inflows. Total outflows. Net position. That's the metric. Now you detect something additional. Participants are lingering longer. Not due to winning. Due to proximity. The logs reveal it. Balances ascend slightly. Then descend. Then ascend again. Then vanish. The cycle recurs. And it recurs more frequently now. Because there are more of them. One night you witness something novel. A larger deposit. 850. You halt. Observe the session closely. The participant gains early. A few favorable rounds. Balance climbs. Then stabilizes. Then commences a gradual retreat. Not precipitously. Just sufficiently to sustain engagement. You don't interfere. You simply study. Because now you comprehend. The mechanism doesn't hasten. It elongates the experience. You recheck your aggregate post-session. Elevated. Noticeably. You recline. Examining the figures. Because now it's no longer modest. It's not supplementary income. It's something distinct. Something dependable. Something replicable. And that's what transforms your cognition. The next morning, you delay the check. Prepare coffee. Settle. Then launch the dashboard. Elevate it again. Naturally. At this juncture, you anticipate it. And that anticipation is the differentiator. You no longer query, will it expand? You query, what is its ceiling? You cease perceiving it as a website. That's the evolution. Eventually, it becomes something alternative. A mechanism. An entity that operates and amplifies. Even absent your observation. You access the dashboard less frequently now. Not due to indifference. Due to predictability. You already know what awaits. Amplified figures. Increased traffic. Additional movement. The pattern is stable. And that stability cultivates confidence. That's what shifts your perspective. Not the funds. The reliability. You commence investigating traffic origins. Where participants originate. Basic sources initially. Discussion boards. Niche communities. Organic referrals. Nothing orchestrated. But now you desire more. Not arbitrary visitors. Consistent flow. You open a new tab. Advertisements. Rudimentary campaigns. Nothing intricate. Just exposure. You allocate a modest budget. Test it. Monitor the outcome. The next day, you review your dashboard. Elevated participant count. Not twofold, but perceptibly increased. Deposits follow. Identical pattern. Identical behavior. Just amplified. Because now it's evident. You're no longer awaiting participants. You can attract them. That's what amplifies the scale. That evening, you venture outside briefly. Nothing significant. Just a drive. You pause at an intersection. And that's when you register it. A vehicle. Sleek. Silent. Recent. It glides adjacent to you. You don't gawk. But you note it. The aesthetic. The motion. Then it departs. And momentarily, you contemplate it. Not earnestly. Just a notion. Not presently. But imminently. You don't articulate it. You don't strategize. You merely store it. Upon returning home, you launch the dashboard. Balance elevated since morning. Again. You examine your aggregate across recent weeks. Then juxtapose it with the present. The disparity is unmistakable. You're no longer speculating. You're forecasting. If this trajectory sustains. That's the incomplete reflection. You don't finalize it. It's unnecessary. You reopen the advertisement panel. Augment the budget fractionally. Nothing drastic. Just sufficient to examine. Then you access the casino parameters. RTP still at 92%. You don't adjust it. Not today. Because now you've absorbed a principle. Expansion isn't solely about manipulation. It's about volume. Additional participants. Additional sessions. Identical mechanism. Identical conclusion. Because for the first instance, you're not contemplating functionality. You're contemplating magnitude. And that contemplation feels more tangible than anything preceding it. Initially, you manage everything independently. Support. Inquiries. Transaction processing. Platform maintenance. It operates. But it doesn't amplify efficiently. The more visibility you generate, the more responsibilities accumulate. Unanswered correspondence. Pending withdrawal requests. Concurrent user questions. You detect it one evening. 3 chat windows active. 2 emails unread. A payment lag alert. Nothing catastrophic. But sufficient to impede momentum. That's the obstacle. Not failure. Friction. You remain there alternating between tabs. Striving to preserve fluidity. Because the mechanism only performs if it feels seamless. Prompt replies. Clean interface. Zero lag. That's what retains participants. The following day, you arrive at a decision. Not monumental. Just pragmatic. You onboard assistants. Someone remote. Support only. Address inquiries. Manage routine requests. Nothing confidential. At least initially. You grant restricted privileges. Explicit guidelines. Maintain oversight. And it functions instantly. Quicker responses. Diminished burden. Additional capacity to concentrate on the architecture. That was the objective. Several days later, you incorporate another individual. Payments. Cryptocurrency transactions. Deposit reconciliation. Again. Restricted privileges. Again. Controlled. The apparatus feels more polished now. More efficient. More systematic. You're no longer executing every task. You're supervising. That's the transition. You recline more often. Monitor the dashboard. Evaluate totals instead of chasing minutiae. And the figures continue ascending more rapidly now. Because nothing obstructs the flow. One night you verify your balance. Unprecedented elevation. You no longer react identically. You simply acknowledge it. Because now it feels anticipated. Then something minor transpires. A holdup. A withdrawal request consumes longer than typical. You investigate. Discover it was processed by another party. Nothing erroneous. Just slower than your personal standard. You remain silent. But you register it. The next day, you scrutinize logs for reassurance. Everything appears orderly. Clean. No anomalies. Still. You scroll longer than necessary. Because now there's a novel element within your system. Not participants. Not traffic. Personnel. And personnel don't operate like algorithms. They pause. They inquire. They perceive. That's the thought that lingers. Days later, one of them messages you. A straightforward question regarding withdrawal prioritization. You reply succinctly. Neutral. But after transmitting, you pause. Because that inquiry didn't materialize from emptiness. It originated from observation. You reopen the dashboard. Examine the figures. Then the activity. Then the logs. Everything still functions. Superior to previously. Yet something feels subtly altered. Not fractured. Not erroneous. Just distributed. You're no longer the sole observer. And for the first instance since commencement, you realize something quietly. The mechanism is no longer exclusively yours. It doesn't fracture. That's the peculiar aspect. Everything still operates. Participants active. Deposits continue. The dashboard animates identically. Externally. Nothing shifted. But you sense it. Minor details initially. A postponement here. A query there. Nothing grave. Just distinct. You access the logs more frequently now. Not due to suspicion of malfunction. Because you seek confirmation of its absence. You scroll through transactions. Payments appear orderly. Balances correspond. Sessions adhere to the familiar template. Still lucrative. Still regulated. Then you detect something subtle. A withdrawal executed more swiftly than standard. Not your cadence. Not your methodology. You verify who authorized it. Not you. You don't react outwardly. You simply continue scrolling. Another instance. Distinct participant. Identical processor. Still technically correct. Yet the pattern is novel. You contemplate. Because now you're not merely observing participants. You're surveilling your own infrastructure and the individuals within it. Later that night, your device buzzes. Message from your support associate. Certain users are inquiring about equity. You read it twice. Because that term stands apart. Equity. You respond. Maintain simplicity. No justifications. He replies promptly. Understood. Concise. But something about the tone feels altered. Less detached. You close the chat. Reopen the dashboard. Your balance exceeds this morning's figure. Again. Everything still expands. Yet the expansion feels weightier. Less pristine than previously. You access the admin panel. Review access logs. Who authenticated? When? From where? Everything appears routine. Familiar locations. Typical hours. But you still scroll longer than required. Because now you're not seeking errors. You're seeking intention. The subsequent day, you awaken and reach for your device first. Not the dashboard. Messages. Nothing unusual. Then you launch the platform. Everything operational. Identical rhythm. Identical motion. Until you perceive it. A substantial withdrawal request. Larger than typical. You access the account. Review history. Significant deposits. Consistent losses. Then an abrupt gain. Uncommon. Not impossible. Just different. You examine the timing. The session. Then the processor. identical individual again. You don't authorize it. You simply remain stationary, gazing at the display. Because now the inquiry isn't, is something amiss? It's, is someone comprehending the mechanism identically to how you did? You close the panel gradually. Your device remains silent. No notifications. No cautions. Yet the sensation persists. Because for the first instance since inception, you're not concerned about participants. You're observing your own personnel. You don't confront anyone. Not immediately. You simply watch. That's the lesson absorbed. The mechanism consistently reveals patterns initially. So you cease reacting and commence observing. You reopen the logs. Delve deeper this occasion. Not merely transactions. Comprehensive activity. Session durations. Withdrawal authorizations. Access chronology. You filter by participant. Then by processor. Then by timestamp. And that's when it becomes unmistakable. It's not arbitrary. It's orchestrated. Modest victories. Specific accounts. Managed by the identical processor repeatedly. You remain seated. Staring at the display. Because now you recognize it instantaneously. It's the identical logic you employed. Simply not by you. You don't message them. You don't pose inquiries. Because you already possess the answer. They deciphered it identically to you. And now they're leveraging it. That night, you verify your balance. Still substantial. Still expanding. Yet something registers as irregular. You contrast it against projections. Against anticipated values. There's a discrepancy. Not enormous. But sufficient. Sufficient to detect. Sufficient to signify. Because now it's not solely about reliance. It's about dominion. And dominion is eroding. Your device vibrates. Unidentified number. You fixate on it. Then answer. A voice. Composed. Direct. Your platform has been designated for fiscal scrutiny. Your chest constricts fractionally. Not alarm. But something more acute. We advise you examine your activities. The connection terminates. No elaboration. No continuation. Just intelligence. You remain motionless momentarily. Because now two dynamics are converging. Your mechanism is hemorrhaging internally. And being surveilled externally. You reopen the dashboard. Everything still operational. Participants engaged. Currency circulating. Nothing halted. Yet now it feels volatile. Like an entity accelerating beyond regulation. You access the admin panel. Review your personnel privileges. 3 individuals. Each with restricted authorizations. At least. That was the presumption. You select deeper. Re-examine activity logs. And then you perceive it. One of them accessed an area beyond their designated boundary. Not explicitly forbidden. But proximate. Probing limitations. Investigating identically to your initial phase. You close the panel. Settle back into your chair. Because now the circumstance is unambiguous. This is no longer your mechanism. It's something larger. Something distributed. Something you don't entirely command. Your device illuminates again. Communications. Multiple. From your personnel. Queries. Postponements. Require guidance on disbursements. Participants inquiring about withdrawals. System latency on transactions. You don't respond. Not instantly. Because now each message resembles pressure from every vector. You glance at your display once more. Dashboard still animated. Currency still arriving. Quicker than ever. Yet for the first instance, you're not contemplating expansion. You're contemplating chronology. Because now it's evident. You cannot sustain this operation much longer. And the sole remaining determination is the moment of cessation. You don't await confirmation. You don't await another communication. Because at this juncture, you require no substantiation. You've witnessed sufficient. You position yourself before the dashboard, observing its motion. Identical as always. Participants enrolling. Deposits arriving. Balances fluctuating. Externally, it appears flawless. Superior to ever. Yet now you perceive it differently. Not as expansion. As vulnerability. You access your wallet. Multiple repositories. Diverse balances. You don't compute the aggregate. You already recognize it surpasses initial expectations. Surpasses adequacy. That's the pertinent factor now. Not magnitude. Merely sufficiency. You proceed deliberately. No haste. No abrupt maneuvers. You've studied how mechanisms react to sudden alterations. So you avoid generating one. You commence transferring modest amounts initially. Distinct pathways. Distinct cadences. Nothing conspicuous. You've observed patterns sufficiently to comprehend them. Now you evade them. Your device continues illuminating. Communications from your personnel. More frequent now. More explicit. You don't access them. Because any utterance now supplements the mechanism. And you're endeavoring to depart it. Individually, you rescind access. Not simultaneously. Progressively. Permissions diminished. Connections severed. Until eventually. They're no longer internal. No justifications. No cautions. Simply absent. You open the server console. Examine the platform. Still operational. Still active. Still generating revenue. Momentarily, you hesitate. Because this is what you assembled from void. A mechanism that functions. Predictable. Profitable. Regulated. Then you terminate it. Not theatrically. A few selections. Services halt. Links dissolve. The platform vanishes. No notification. No closure announcement. Simply offline. You remain in stillness. No dashboard. No activity. No motion. The atmosphere feels altered. Quieter. You inspect your device one concluding occasion. Missed communications. Unidentified sources. You don't access any. You deactivate it. That night, you relocate. No itinerary. No declaration. Just movement. Distinct environment. Distinct arrangement. Days elapse. Then additional. No mechanism. No platform. No activity. You don't reconstruct it. You don't even verify. Because now the pattern is extinguished. Yet something else persists. You detect it in minor instances. When your device vibrates. When a notification surfaces. When someone's gaze lingers fractionally. Nothing materializes. Yet you still assess. Still contemplate. Still compute. Because even though the mechanism is absent, the manner you perceive circumstances isn't. Concluding reflection. You assembled a mechanism that never succumbs. Until you apprehended that remaining within it constituted the sole defeat.